So thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Esports are becoming like a huge topic. Can you just give us a little bit of an overview of the esports landscape right now as it relates to school?
Oh, absolutely. So at the middle and high school level, we call that Scholastic E-Sports, okay, for that level. Obviously, they're just like any sport, there's that pro level, amateur level, and the collegiate level. But I mainly address the Scholastic esports side. So where this has come, and it's been amazing to watch the evolution of esports in this space. I've been teaching for over 18 years, and I brought esports into my high school about 2014. So been a while, right? I can't believe it. I was like, oh my goodness, it's been 8 years. But it just started very simply like a lot of teachers or coaches that are like, hey, I like video games. My kids like video games. I would like another way to be able to connect with my students outside of my classroom. Right? Very similar to how like a math teacher would volunteer to coach soccer or something like that, right? And it just very started simply with kids coming in. I was a computer teacher, and so I had a computer lab, right? The kids would come in sometimes after school. Hey, Mr. Shima, can we come in and play games in your room after school? And I'm like, yeah, come on in, and I'll join you after I get done wrapping up for the day. So we would hang out for an hour, a couple hours, just playing and really bonding in that sense. And the first question they started to think about. They're like, hey, Shima, is there a way to be able to play against other schools? That would be awesome. Because we were just kind of playing against each other in the room, and that was really fun. And I'm like, yeah, let me see what's going on. And I was teaching, even though I'm from here, Southern California, I was teaching in Colorado. And I said, let me see what was going on in Colorado. And there wasn't anything going on back then, 2014. It was a desert. Nobody was doing esports. So I had to pick up the phone literally and call other teachers and say, hey, do you got kids that might want to play my kids in StarCraft 2 and Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone back then? Like, yeah, that would be awesome. And it was really a grassroots movement. And so take my story and then magnify that across the country. And that's where these esports was starting to happen, because as we know, kids are looking for a community. Okay, and they're normally going to find it in traditional sports, theater, band. Okay, but that's not every kid. And so where can kids go to find like-minded students that are into the things that they want to do, where they can just interact and have a good time and get competitive if so wanted. So that's where kind of the history of esports has gone. And I ran Colorado's organized high school league for about 5 years until our athletic association got on board and said, hey, I think we should probably put up an esports program here statewide. It's like, yeah, that's great. So, and then I started playing with Generation Esports, and that's kind of what led my pathway to now working with them and helping schools all over the West region get their program started, because they're hearing about it. They go to big conferences for superintendents and principals. They're coming back going, I think we need an esports program. I'm hearing good things, and they're reaching these students and cohorts that we've always been wondering, how do we reach these kids? And it's through video games. And 97% of kids play video games in some form or another. So why wouldn't we as educators tap into that, take something that they're excited about, that they're engaged with, and leverage that to create a wonderful educational experience for them and a competitive experience too as well. So does that pretty much answer it?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I think, and I'm curious because, so I can see where kids would be engaged, right? And you're right, kids need connections. We want them to want to come to school. Are there academic components as well? Are there things that they're learning that they may not even be aware of that they're learning as they're engaging in this?
Yeah, absolutely. The neat thing about working with my kids after school, just doing competitive video gaming, I saw very quickly, wow, there's really an interest here. I want to start bringing this excitement into my classroom during the school day. So, because I was the computers teacher, right? I taught graphic design, I did video editing, coding, all that stuff. I'm like, how can I bring in project-based learning around games? Okay, so for example, in my graphic design class, we would learn how to use Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and things like that to be able to create digital assets like social media ads, posters, banners, products, clothing design, all that stuff. And a lot of times I'd be like, hey, how can I put a nice little twist on this? So to give you an example, there was one project I did for the kids. I said, all right, I'm gonna break you guys up into groups. You guys work for Sony, you guys work for Microsoft, you guys work for Nintendo. I go, you're gonna come up with a marketing campaign where your whole goal is to convince the world why they should buy your console this holiday season. And it must include a commercial, it must include a social media ad, must include a poster, and you have to do a presentation on it. And they're like, oh, and I specifically chose kids, I put them in, in the console that I knew they had passionate about. They own that console. Oh man, we're going to get this. So to have them really get excited about learning about marketing and advertising, promotions, being able to write copy, to do game reviews, to promote for an event planning, to collaborate, okay, over something that they're passionate about. How do I get my messaging out there? Which, as you know, in this day and age, is how quickly and how efficiently can you get your messaging out there? And how, because people are moving really quickly in this day and age, and you want to be able to do that effectively. Talk about branding, okay, and the importance of that. And with kids, today, they're not thinking about 10, 20 years down the road. It's like, no, your brand starts now in middle school as an individual. When people Google you, what are they going to see? Okay, and have them start to think about those types of things. So yes, so many transferable skills that you can learn taking esports and video games and that industry and introducing it to that way. Now, whether they stay in that industry or not, that's up to them. But they can take marketing and graphic design and video editing and putting together a commercial or a montage about video games and take that into any industry that they want to.
Well, and there's actually a lot of career paths, right,
yes.
that come out of the gaming industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even if you go into the esports part in itself, what a lot of people don't know is when they think about competitive video gaming for kids, they're like, oh, they're just plugging in their controller and playing against each other. Well, that's how it starts. But if you look at collegiate programs, esports programs, they have trainers, they have nutritionalists, they have a huge exercise program. The commitment and the perseverance that's involved with being a part of those sports teams mirrors anything that you would see on the football team or the basketball team. And that's something that's of great value for the kids. Because we think about that today. It's like, well, why do we offer volleyball and basketball in high school? Well, it's very important. They learn a whole bunch of great soft skills about commitment and responsibility and teamwork. And yes, you're right. But what do you do for those kids that aren't interested in playing those? Where are they going to get that experience? And esports and video games can be that for them. So not only are they learning those hard CTE transferable skills, but they're also learning those soft skills that are going to really help them be successful in high school and in college and career as they move forward.
Well, today we're at an AI Symposium, and LACOE's first AI Symposium, and with so many things in AI, it's when I heard esports and AI, I thought, I hadn't thought of that before. So what does that look like for esports?
It's really wonderful, actually. AI and video gaming, and to a lesser extent in esports, has been around for decades. We talk about AI like it's this big thing that just happened last year, and oh my goodness, it's going to change the world. Gaming AI has been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, here at the symposium, I'm going to talk about its humble beginnings back in the 80s with Pac-Man. There was very rudimentary AI that was going on there to making the ghosts move around and giving them a certain personality in a lot of sense. And back they were like, wow, how do they know how to chase us? And but you flash forward to today, the AI tools that are available for not only the players to create realistic player experiences in a way that we only dreamed of. Right? I think we all remember Star Trek: The Next Generation, where we all just wanted the holodeck. It's like, man, just give me the holodeck. I want that experience. We're not there at the holodeck level yet, but we're definitely knocking on the door where AI tools now, and you talk about accessibility and equity in education, whether it's a kid or a really small, tiny video game studio, can now compete and create video games at the level of these AAA studios because of the AI tools. Instead of having to have a team of coders to be able to create a world environment, they can drop in some VR goggles and say, hey, I need an office, 32nd floor with a view. Just comes up. Okay, so I'm using text to speech in this example. Say, great, I need 1970s decor. Love that James Bond poster, but give me a different one. Yes. Okay, I need a coffee table. Give me some choices. Okay, I like that one. And so now they're getting out of the tediousness of being able to create games and really spending more time in the creative nature and the storytelling. All right. Even AI tools, there's a tool right now that a major game developer is using and developing called Ghostwriter, where people always forget about this role in video games, but there's somebody that writes the scripts and the dialogue for all the small, tiny characters that are walking around in the world. You kind of hear them as you're walking by them, but somebody had to write those lines, all right? And that can be very tedious. Any scriptwriter will tell you those types of things, but it's like, hey, here's an AI tool that will propose lines of dialogue for you, and then now use the scriptwriter can approach it and go, oh, I really like that one. I like this one, but change that one little part. And it's kind of taking that initial heavy load and making it a lot more fun for them, where they can spend more time in the creative process, creating the game that they want to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's just a small example of how AI is being used, and even taking chores out of like just basic coding, and just like, hey, I need the game to do this. Give me the code to be able to make that happen. Okay, and now they can go in there and tweak it, but it gets the initial work out of the way.
No, so we know kids are using AI,
Sure.
and you were a teacher who knew kids were using video games, and you embraced that. So
Yes.
what would be your advice to teachers who, they know their kids are using it, they may be a little nervous about it, how should they think about it?
Well, I always like to use those phrases that we throw around in education for many years, and I don't mean to say like use it against the teachers, because these are the phrases that we made up, okay? One of the things you've heard is, we have to meet the kids where they are. You're right. So where are they? This is where they are. They love video games. They're very interested in AI. What are we going to do about it? Okay, it's sitting there right in front of us, very obvious. Are we going to shun it and say no? Okay, are we going to say like, hey, how can we use that? So I would tell any educator, remember that. All right. The other phrase that we always use in education is, as teachers, we need to be lifelong learners. That's right. What a fantastic area for us to learn as adults and as teachers, okay, where we can almost learn alongside our students and experience it for the first time with them and discover things. In a short amount after you've taught a class for a year, now you're the pro, right? And now you can come in next year and feel like you know a little bit more than what the kids know. But those are really great opportunities as teachers, and we need to challenge ourselves as teachers. So step into it. Don't run away from it. Lean into it. Find a way to be able to take these tools and modify a lesson that maybe it was feeling a little stale after 5-10 years of teaching this particular lesson. It's like, how can I use these tools now to create something amazing? Or we're reading this literature book, okay, and they're describing an environment in the literature book and says, hey kids, why don't you take the language that the author uses, plug it into this application and talk about it and see if you can actually create that environment in 3D. And let me walk around it. Let's see what that was actually. That's going to be amazing for a kid to be able to do that. So.
Well, and finally, one of the things that you touched on was listening to kids.
Yes.
So what kind of questions should teachers be asking kids about AI and their use of it? What would help them?
I found that in education, a lot of times we can underestimate how deep the kids are thinking about this in this area. So just asking them, just simple intro, what is it about AI that excites you the most? Okay. And just listen to what they say. You'll be surprised at what comes out. They may I like how it makes me think a little bit more about it. I like how it helps me find my mistakes and makes me look better than I thought I was. And that's great for kids because there's a lot of insecurity out there. I mean, we experience that as adults, but even at kids, when they're learning something like, am I good? Do I know this? And to be able to use AI to be able to challenge themselves in a very low bar, okay, where there's not a lot of pressure. Okay, ask me some questions. What do I know? Can you quiz me about this test that I'm about ready to take? Judge my answers, all right? And have it be very friendly, very encouraging, all right? And always have all of the time in the world for students. And they really do like that attention. Now, will they ever, and this is kind of a big theme here at the symposium, will teachers ever get replaced by AI? No, I don't think any human being thinks that, because nothing is going to replace that human touch. And even with my students, to be able to ask them, hey, what did the AI say about where you need to improve? Well, the AI said I need to work on my grammar, the way that I explain things. Okay, great. Well, how do you think you're going to go about that? And now have a conversation with the student and connect those two worlds together. But you've kind of gotten all the tediousness out of the way. You already have the subject of what to talk about. The kid feels empowered. They're like, I want to do better at this. And now we can kind of strategize together, human to human, using the input that we got from AI. That's just one example.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time and your great advice. We're very much looking forward to continuing this conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.